I'm Coach Dave. Welcome back to Coach's Corner.
Come on.
Welcome back to Coach's Corner. I'm Dave McDonough, your host. Today we have another guest, and she's come quite a way for us, and we really appreciate her travels. Not only a guest, we've become pretty friendly over the last year thanks to our friends here at Locked In, Ian Bick, Matt Cronin. Welcome, Ginger Wolf.
Hi.
We appreciate you coming up. And, you know, Ginger is just another individual that has a very, very uplifting story that kind of relates to boxing, whereas we see people going through situations in life and having to find their way and navigate their way and their ups and downs and how it leads into a boxing gym or boxing. So I'm going to kind of let you get into yourself a little bit here, and you're a pretty big personality, and you know, you're not ashamed to talk a little bit. So I'm going to kind of let you tell a little bit of your story from the beginning, and we'll segue in and out of it.
Sounds good. Hi, guys. My name's Ginger Wolf. For those of you who don't know me, I've kind of fallen into the podcast realm due to my background. You know, as a child, I was bullied a lot by my family, by people within the community. It had a really big impact on the way I viewed myself and the way I engaged with other people. And when I turned 18, I had a full-blown addiction to Oxycontin for the first 10 years of my adulthood. And it prevented me from being able to act on anything that I really wanted to do within my life. I squandered a full academic scholarship. I wasn't able to hold jobs. I wasn't able to be a compassionate human being or a good partner or a good daughter. It was just a really rough time for me. And in December of 2015, I participated with the TV show Intervention and was gifted the gift of sobriety and recovery through treatment. After I came out of treatment, I basically changed everything in my life. I had a point of where I had almost 3 years of total sobriety. And when I say total sobriety, I mean I was like a Mormon sober,
Right.
No caffeine, no marijuana, no alcohol, no street drugs, no pharmaceuticals, no Sudafed. I didn't have sex for a while. I put a lot of energy into reconstructing my life because I had the ability to do that once my head cleared. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of 12-step that really helped me, and I found that I could start to trust people again and that I could start to trust my own judgments. And part of how I got hooked on pills was to have chronic pain issues. So once I got sober, there were days where I'd be sitting in the bathtub all day crying, thinking about suicide because I had this pain, and everyone in the rooms was saying, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I did chiropractic care, massage therapy, acupuncture, a rolfer, physical therapy, yoga. I did a lot of yoga and got into aerial arts and aerial silks and lyra and pole dance to try to stretch my body.
Yeah.
And to try to let my body heal from years and years of damage that had just been ignored. And I was just, using the Band-Aid of the Oxycontin to cover up something that really could have been corrected with time, energy, and money. But I remember the whole time that I was sober, I really felt like I was missing out on something. I remember a year after I got sober, it's so embarrassing. My husband at the time, and I, we went to Gatlinburg, and I wanted to do the indoor skydiving. I was 225 pounds. And for, reference, I'm about 5'10", and I'm about 175 right now. So I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And when I was at my boxing peak, I was about 160. So it was really embarrassing for me to go there because they had to tell me, hey, you're too heavy. You can't do this. Your husband can do it, but you can't.
Right.
Yeah. So after that experience, I changed my lifestyle and I got into a gym in Destin. It was great for the segue and the transition to get me into the gym, but I never really felt accepted there. I never really felt like I belonged there. And then I got more and more into the aerial arts. And then when I was at the aerial gym, somebody had referred me to a trainer that did boxing, I started with him, and I caught on to it really fast. And when I say boxing, I mean like I'm hitting mitts. I'm not out there in a ring hitting another person or anything like that at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, not at that point. And he kept telling me, he was like, dude, he's like, if you really like this, you thrive in this type of situation, and you're getting much better quicker. He's like, I don't know that you can continue to grow with me at the rate you're growing. I think you need to branch off and find like a boxing trainer. So then I went to Pensacola and found Smoke Gaynor, who was a boxing champ. He worked with Roy Jones for a while.
Coming out of Roy Jones's camp, high pedigree, good trainer right there. Definitely somebody who's going to bring you along.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I spent hours. Like I was at the gym so much, they gave me a job because I was always hanging out up there. They were like, hey, you might as well start helping us run stuff because you're here and nobody else is kind of doing it.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was more accepted in a boxing gym than any other gym I'd ever been in. And there was never a time where I went in and like I knew on a day-to-day basis that there were things I were doing wrong. There were things that I didn't know how to do, and I didn't have somebody to coach me all the time on some of these things. Like before I'd met Smoke, I always had people willing to help me. No one ever laughed at me.
Well, the dynamic of a boxing gym is a lot different than any other gym, okay? It's not Planet Fitness. It's not the Edge, and no disrespect to those places. They fit a need to certain individuals, okay? The dynamic in a boxing gym is you don't know who you're next to. You could be next to a CEO. You could be next to a millionaire. You could be next to the garbage guy. You could be next to a former pro. Other athletes come in there, and you know what? Any boxing gym that I've been in, everybody is accommodating. There's no judgment as far as because there's all levels. Everybody starts at the same place in that gym, and fighters remember from the first time that they walked into a gym of where they started, and there was always somebody there to help them and guide them, or we wouldn't be where we are today. As a trainer, I remember some of the best coaches, not only boxing coaches, but coaches that helped mentor me and make me who I am today so I can coach and be a better coach. So, people don't see that, Ginger. They don't understand the dynamic. They see the old Rocky movie, Mick yelling and cursing and dirty buckets and dirty locking. Yeah, some boxing gyms are like that, the old school ones. But now it's a little different. So, you went through a lot, and there's a lot more that you're kind of leaving out. But, your story is not any different than a lot of people in life that are going through situations. But you had a tough navigation. How are you navigating through all of this stuff? Because there's a lot of moving parts from what you're telling me. How are you navigating day to day? Oxy, the situation with that and your own personal feelings going on. How are you trying to fight that out before you got to the point of the intervention, before you got to the point of people helping you? Did you think you had problems going on, or was you looking for help? Or
Absolutely. So I woke up on my 18th birthday with my first day of withdrawal. I didn't know what it was. I had a heat stroke the junior year of my high school years that summer, and I just didn't function right after. I remember the doctor when I was in the hospital. He's like, "You had a stroke." He's like, "You're 17 years old and you had a stroke. You need to take 2 months off of work." And I'm like, "I'm not doing that." He's like, "You need to take a month off of school." I was like, "I'm not doing that either."
Right.
And I didn't really realize how it would affect me. And I also had, I kind of glazed over because I was trying to do the short form to jump into the boxing. But I had a lot of trauma as a child that was never addressed, like physical trauma to the body, and then emotional and social trauma. So I think...
So this is all taking an effect in you and leading you into what,
the depths of addiction.
Yeah, you're 18 years old.
Yeah.
How much oxy are you doing at 18 years old?
At that point, it wasn't...
to get like this physically, because, look, I know you now.
Right.
Okay? I know you from the gym. I know what you're capable of doing, your movement, your personality from our conversations, and you're a very focused, directive individual right now, knows what she wants. It's hard to kind of look back at that person and say, man, I can't see you as that person.
Right. And it's so great when people say that, because a lot of times I get nervous because I'll tell people about the intervention. The first thing I want to do is watch it. And like, I understand that people think they're supporting me, but in a way it's almost like, I was like one of the worst experiences of my life, other than the day that I hit the pedestrian where I went to prison. Yeah. So like, why would you want to go watch that if you support me? You know what I mean? Like, why would you want to watch with popcorn on your fucking couch the worst experience I've ever had, and it be for your entertainment to discuss?
Right.
You know? And like the show was kind of like a gift and a curse, because I was going to kill myself. And you know, I'm kind of jumping around. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Let me go back. So at 18, I was probably doing, I don't know, maybe a couple of the Oxy 30s a day in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then by the time I kind of went back and forth between, I tried the methadone clinic by like 19. I tried to just cold turkey. I did that quite a few times. Was really sick for a really long time, like weeks. And I had people say, well, I was only ever sick 3 days. Okay, well, I'm telling you, I puked everywhere and shit myself for like 3 fucking weeks, bro. It's a real thing. Yeah. But I hit the pedestrian. I had a child. I got sober for a little bit, but not like real sober. I did let's call it harm reduction, because it wasn't really sober. I was doing like the Suboxone. I tried the methadone. I got pregnant with my first child.
You're trying to self-medicate throughout this situation.
Yeah. I'm in a toxic relationship at this point. I've been going on and off for like three years or so. And I get pregnant with his child. We have the child, and like, as soon as we had the baby, he took on school and work intentionally to like be gone all day. And then I couldn't leave the house to like go buy diapers. It was just a really weird situation. We were very bad for each other. He's a great father, but like, we were just really bad for each other, right? I must have been, it was in 2009. So my child was 6 months old. He had colic at the time. I didn't sleep the night before. I dropped him off with his father's mother. I went and took my meds, because like almost immediately after I had the baby, I got back on the pills. I got back on the oxys, like within 3 months or so, because I wasn't breastfeeding or anything. I took my meds. I went to the neighbor's house, which was literally 2 doors down, and I took my meds, and then got to the car, went back to the house, and realized I wasn't allowed to have a house key. So I'd locked myself out of the house, because normally I would take the back door key, and I forgot, because I just lived in the door and I forgot to take it. My kid's dad at the time worked at the hospital, and it was going into surgery. He was X-ray, CAT scan technician. And he's like, hey, if you need a key, you got to come now. And it's like super hot. You know, I should have never driven. Like, I knew I was too fucked up to drive. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm like a mile away. I'm going to take the side road. I'm not going to take US 1. I lived in St. Augustine, Florida at the time. It's like, I'm not going to take US 1. I'm going to take the side road. So I take the side road, and I hit a pedestrian, a 16-year-old girl walking her dog in the middle of the road. I was so fucked up, I thought I hit a mailbox at first. And then when I looked around, I saw a dog, and I never stopped. I never got out. I never checked the car. And like, that was kind of like the beginning of the end for me. Like,
when
that happened, like, even though I had a script, I was really only using pills like once or twice a week. The rest of the time I would supplement with Suboxone. I'd do this game where I'd do like 2 milligrams of Suboxone, 4 milligrams of Suboxone 6 days out of the week. 1 day out of the week, I go do 300 to 500 milligrams oxycodone at once. I was railing like 10 pills at a time, because I really wanted to escape, you know? And after the accident, it just got so much worse. Like, my brother had just come home from prison. He's like, yeah, you're going to prison. Like, there's no way around it. You're going to prison. And at that time, I felt like, and it's going to sound so fucked up, and it is, because it was a horrible mindset, but I felt like I don't deserve to go to prison. It was an accident, but like, had that been your kid, or had that been my kid, I'd have wanted me to go.
Is that the mentality of like anybody who's drinking or drugging at the time? It's like, it's not my fault.
I think, yeah.
You know, and no disrespect to you.
No, I definitely was like that. I was definitely a victim all the time. Yeah. As a victim, I had no, and that was, I think in sobriety, that was the most powerful thing that I learned was that, like, dude, you're in control of your situation. If you don't have power over your life, then who is supposed to have power over
Right.
your life? If you can't get the motivation to love yourself and to make your life better, why should anybody else step in and do it? But I was grateful because I had people when I
Around
went
you.
into
So
the
how
rooms
old are you
and
at
helped
this
me.
time?
When I hit the pedestrian, I was born in 87. This was 2009, so like 22, 21, 22.
So you got a curveball coming at you bad time.
Yeah. I did a couple years on bond. I tried to do treatment, but we did like 30 days somewhere that my dad and my grandma split. And then I came home to the same situation, same scenarios. Nothing really changed, and I just went back to using. I didn't implement steps. It was kind of one of those centers where it's like, hey, you can work steps, or like you don't have to, you can just hang out.
Yeah.
And like, if that works for you, great. It didn't work for me. I really needed the step work that I had
You
to
needed
do.
structure.
Yeah, the emotional work. I had to do the emotional, rip open the Band-Aid to like heal some of that trauma in order to be able to have any type of real sobriety or real recovery.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got sentenced to prison. I was sentenced to 3 years of DOC at Lowell Correctional Facility, which is like the women's largest prison in the country and as far as state. And it's the most notorious for sex crimes against inmates by officers. So, sorry.
I'll take your time.
3 years there, 2 years of house arrest after prison, and then they took my driver's license for life. And then I had some others. I had fines, restitution, and then community service.
Right.
And it was devastating to me because, like, I'd never done a day of jail time, and, like, I'm going to prison. So I learned, like, all the prison etiquette and jail etiquette in prison, and I was dope sick. I got yeah. And by the time I got to prison, I was doing 900 to 1,000 milligrams of Oxy every day. I was doing 10 Oxy 30s 3 to 5 times a day. If I had enough money to do $2,000 worth of Oxy, and back then they were like $12, $15 a pill, like I would do $2,000 worth of Oxy. You know what I mean? Like there was a couple of times where I did like 50 pills, 60 pills because I tried to kill myself, and I just fucking wake up mad. And for the longest time too, I was like just like I don't even deserve to live. So like, why is God? Is it like to punish me because I deserve to be punished because of what I did?
But at that time, you got chemicals in you. You're not thinking
Yeah.
right. You know, your mind is not strong of what happened.
Yeah.
So you know what? It's a lot of stuff going on in your head at that time, and then the anxiety of going away.
Yeah, and not knowing what to expect.
Right.
So I stayed at Lowell the whole time. I was off drugs. I didn't do any drugs while I was at Lowell or anything like that. I got involved in some of like the prison schemes, that we get in. Because I kind of felt towards the end I didn't have a choice because I was going home to house arrest. I knew I couldn't stay. My parents would allow me to live with them, but I couldn't live with them. The environment wasn't good for me. And like I was a fucking adult. I was like 24 years old. Like I needed to be out of my mom and dad's.
You're an older 24 years old. It's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Your life is you've seen a lot and done a lot at that point, unfortunately. So it's not, and being away, you're on your own.
Yeah. And you realize how alone you are.
Yeah.
Because like it's crazy too because all the people that like called me every day and came see me every day when I got locked up. A few of them rode for a little bit, but for the most part, I was on my own. My grandmother rode harder for me, and my aunt that didn't like me rode harder for me than anybody else ever did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
unfortunately, that's how you find out who your real friends are.
Yeah, and I didn't really have any.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends that hung around because the connections that I had or whatever I brought to the physical table. But I learned a lot about myself in prison, Had a couple fights in prison that were, just were what they were. And when I came home, I had enough separation from the family and the chemicals to be able to take an honest look at my life, and that like I was the problem in my life. It wasn't my situation. It wasn't just my trauma. It wasn't what happened to me and how my family and I interacted or where I physically was located. Like and the way I looked at life, I had to have a disease of perception. My perception is skewed, which makes my reality skewed, and it makes it really difficult to have a normal life when you're operating in like an emotional cloud.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. You know, you're trying to justify what you're doing as being right.
Yeah.
To people around you.
Yeah.
And yourself a little bit, because basically you're trying to validate, oh yeah, I could stop, I could do this, I could do that. Yeah, it's all right. It's not that bad. I'm not that person.
Yeah. Yeah, and I compromised like a lot of my morals to keep the drugs going. And a lot of it was because the physical withdrawal for me was so bad and so long that like I'd get a few days into it and I'm like, dude, I just can't do this anymore. I can't physically do it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, physically, it's got to wear on you.
Oh, yeah.
Physically, it's got to wear on you. And, you know, at a young age, as a young woman, to have that physical effect on you has got to be, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. But so I came home I came home the end of September of 2013, and by 2015 September, I was ready to kill myself because I had relapsed, you know, for maybe 6 months or so after coming home. I had a work incident where I was working in a kitchen and I got poked with a knife and caught MRSA, and they had to cut it open twice and pack it. And they gave me a shot of Dilaudid. They told me it wouldn't affect me because and I let them, you know, and that's another thing too. So like it's so funny because when I was in the rooms originally, I heard them say, every time I tell my story, it's the same, but it's different. And I remember thinking, well, how could that be so? You must be lying. No, that's not what they meant. What they meant was my perception of what was going on in my view of what actually occurred, gets more clear and precise every time I retell and every time I re-examine my life. So, like, if you had asked me then...
it's an out-of-body experience. You could take a step back and actually see what's going on and say, well, I shouldn't have done that. I should have did this, or... yada, yada, yada at that point. But let me ask you this. You know, coming home, you said you relapsed.
Correct.
Was it because of the people around you? Was it a personal? Was it like, hey, I can just mess with this a little bit. I'm not going to have a problem again. I've been okay for 3 years now. I mean,
all but the latter. So, like, I was petrified coming home from prison because I was so scared. Dude, like, the first night I was home, I found a loaded needle that must have had 15 oxys in it. The thing was so blue, and I gave it to my mom at like 2 a.m. But probably had I not been on that probation, you know, because I didn't want to go back, you know, I think I probably would have used that night. Because I'd done none of the emotional work. I hadn't cleared out any of the wreckage of my past in order to be able to thrive without substances. And I didn't have a support system.
Yeah.
And so like
I get that, but just kind of walk me through one thing here, okay? Your body physically is off of it for 3+ years,
2.5 years,
You're not craving it at this point at all. Is it your body not craving it, or is your mind still dancing in that world?
It was both. So because I've got the chronic muscle issues and the chronic spine issues, every time I have a bad day, my brain immediately is like, dude, we could fix this. We know. It's like Schmeagol out of the freaking Lord of the Rings. That's literally what's going on in my head. Is my brain is starting to obsess over the idea that, hey, you don't have to be in this type of pain. Why should you have to be in this pain? We got shit to do. We have things to do.
Yeah.
Like, we can just fix this and we'll just keep it moving. And then I had access, you know, when I came home. There were a lot of people waiting for me to come back because, you know, if I buy 30 to 50 pills a day, now they're $30 a pill. When I came home, I got a $1,000 a day habit and no fucking job. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like... So it was just a lot. But, by the time Intervention came out, I had also moved from snorting OxyContin to intravenous Dilaudid use because you couldn't obtain oxys anymore. Florida was flushing out.
It's getting harder and harder.
Yeah, Florida was flushing out all the oxys because they want to get rid of the addicts. So then what they started doing was the people that were getting oxys, a lot of them started getting Dilaudid. So then you had a bunch of IV users because Dilaudid is like 3 times or 1.5 times more powerful in IV form than it is in pill form. And like it was like once that dynamic started, it was kind of like, dude, there's like no, like it's nowhere to really go anymore, bro.
You just stepped up from the minors to the big leagues.
Yeah, but I got to the point where I got so desperate. I wrote like Dr. Phil, I wrote Ellen, and I wrote Intervention, and I prayed to God. I was like, hey,
but you were looking for a way out.
Oh yeah,
You're looking for a way out at this point, right?
I've been looking for a way out. I tried to get.
But okay, I get that part, but there's nobody around you saying, hey, Ginger, wake the fuck up. I got your back. I'm gonna help you because you're going through this in your head. And after everything you went through, I mean, I don't know.
Not really. I mean, like, everybody knew I had a problem. Like, everyone in my family. I hid the drugs from, like, the outside world pretty well for quite a long time until, like, I started having I had track marks on my neck for a while, track marks on my arms. It was bad.
Yeah.
But it was like everybody knew I had this issue, but I'd almost been normalized, you know, like, within my family. And, like, the people that really knew me, it was like, oh, Ginger's in the bathroom again trying to shoot up in her neck. What are you guys doing today? You know what I mean? Ginger's running the dope dealer. Yeah.
As long as you weren't destructive to them.
Yeah.
I guess they validated and said, okay.
Yeah, it was fine. Well, and then, too, like, there was an abundance of funds sitting around for me to go to treatment. You know, I didn't have any money. I didn't have insurance. My parents, I think, were just aggravated with the whole situation. Plus, they had went through all this with my brother and had done a lot to try to help my brother, and my brother was still doing the same stuff, you know? So I think they kind of felt like, I remember my dad, I told him I had written Intervention, and he looked me in the face, he was like, they won't come for you, and if they do come for you, it won't work for you. Which kind of sucks, bro. Like, you're my fucking dad, bro. Like, what did I do to you to make you hate me that much? And you don't want, because to me, I took it like, you don't want them to come. Because why would you say that shit? Because that's why they say, like, what we say is, like, the universe hears what you say. You know what I mean? So after that, it was kind of like, well, if they come, dude, like, they're supposed to come. If they don't come, I'm going to shoot myself in the head. And I was in, like, September, I kind of decided that. And by September I decided that, and by December 16th, Intervention had come, which was interesting because I said I was going to shoot myself between my niece's birthday and Christmas because I didn't want to do it before my niece's birthday because I didn't want her to think about it at her birthday. Right. And
yeah, but you're rationalizing at this point.
Yeah.
That, you know what?
Everybody would just be better off without me.
But you are. But I'm gonna say this you are rationalizing it but you're hoping that it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, I was.
I was
really hoping Intervention was coming.
You're looking for like, okay, and so that happens for you. What
dude, they get 10,000 letters a day.
What is that like? Okay,
the fact that they even saw my letter, never mind, felt that I was worth coming to Florida for because they were based in California.
Well, God bless that happened. You're here today.
Thank God for them because I wouldn't.
Thank God. What's that like after you start that? Now walk me through that process.
So what do you want the process of the show itself or going to treatment?
Forget the show. I want to know what happens after they come in and you're on your road.
So they take me to first I go to one treatment center that's in California. I'm there for like 2.5 weeks, and they realize they don't have 3 weeks. They realize they don't have the facilities to care for me. I had horrible withdrawals. I was throwing up all the time.
Right.
They ended up having to send me to the hospital a couple times because I was so sick, and they didn't have a doctor on staff. It was kind of like a prison. Like you're in jail and you choose to go here or you choose to go to prison. Was one of those programs. So eventually I pitched a fit, and they transferred me to a place in Destin, Florida called Destin Recovery Center. And those people and the people in the rooms in that community saved my life. Like, I personally believe I would not have had the recovery I had Intervention made me stay at the first place. It was what they consider a PHP program, so it's like a partial hospitalization, which means you're not in a hospital, you're in a rehab, and it was a very nice rehab in Destin, Florida, which has some of the most beautiful beaches in the South, with a small group of people. We never had, I don't think, more than 15 people while I was there, and everybody that worked there had been through some type of addiction to something or another. And they all really cared. I'm actually really good friends with most of the staff from there to this day.
How long were you there?
I did 60 days there. And then after that, I was gifted an opportunity to go to sober living. And I did 90 days in sober living in California. So I had a good 6 months of recovery by the time I came home. I went back to
What is sober living?
It's like the phase down from treatment. Yeah. So you're in treatment and like you live with everybody. You get on the van, they take you where you're going. Like it's like being a toddler. Yeah. So now you've upgraded to like middle school, right? We're like, okay, you got a little freedom, but we come over, we make sure your houses are clean. You stay like on like a campus. If the rehab were a college, these would be like the dorms instead of like living inside.
So they're integrating you back into society.
Correct.
To see if you can function.
Yeah, you get a job. You're supposed to go to so many meetings, work with a sponsor, work your steps, help another person. You live on this property. You're supposed to figure out how to manage your money and just do normal life. And it was really good for me. It really was. I've got a lot of people that I still talk to from them that I'm very close with.
Right.
And then when I came home, I went back to Jacksonville for a little while, like a year. And that's how my husband and I got together. And I remember he was in Europe on like a 4-month trip. And I called him. I was like, hey, I'm going to fucking kill myself if I can't get out of here. I just need to get away from this area because I had gotten to a point where because I didn't have a driver's license and he was out to sea, I was stuck in this big house by myself all day long and I couldn't get to meetings. I didn't know anybody in the community because I was an hour from where I knew people because I thought that would be safer for me.
Right.
But I found myself that every time I engaged with like my family and like some of the old people I knew, the wanting to use was coming up.
Yeah,
and
the old habits start to come back in your head.
And then the pain would come. So then I'd start thinking, well, I could probably go to a doctor. And I was like, I got to get out of here. So I went back to Destin. And I lived in Destin for that three years or so. And like I said, the first 2 years and then the year that I was in Florida, I was sober. And then it got to the point where I felt like I was sitting in the rooms listening to people talk about how wonderful life was to be sober, and I was thinking about killing myself totally sober because my pain was so bad I couldn't function. And I'd done everything, like I said, the chiropractic care and all those things. So I ended up getting a medical marijuana card. And that's why I kind of preface with, hey, I am not sober in the sense of abstinence from anything that's mind-altering, but I don't go through life under a haze of drugs. I'm not dependent on any drugs or medications to do anything that I need to do day to day, if that makes sense.
You're using it in a sense to...
And intermittently for pain relief, to help.
Yeah. So now your adaptation back in is you're starting to acclimate a little bit better.
I really thrived. Like the year...
Well, knowing you now is like, like I said at the beginning, to hear this is like, sorry you had to go through this type of thing, knowing you now and not knowing you then, it's crazy because you're definitely a different person. Well, I shouldn't say that you're a different person. You're the person I know now of how you are.
Yeah.
And yes, you are intelligent. You're a thriver. You're out there, thinking business and being a mom and everything else out there. But it's got to be a struggle every day to work through the struggle, I guess.
Yeah, I think I don't have days now where I think about pills like I used to. It's been a long time. We're almost 10 years, distance between me and the intervention.
Yeah.
But there are days where I'm like, dude, I'm in so much pain. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm just constantly moving around and trying to do whatever I can to find relief.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I struggled at the end of the summer with a lot of back pain. And I'm not a pill person or pain, and they wanted to do and when you're in pain, okay.
Just make it go away.
you're uncomfortable
Yep.
where you can't sleep or you can't
Yep.
move and you can't drive. I understand what it comes down to. Is like, okay, I just want to be able to function. I
Right.
just want to be able to get back. So, it's a hard line to draw of what, you're going to do about it and what you can do about it. And let me ask you this. Why does it catch some people and it doesn't? Like, look, we know different people. I know people who messed around, did different things, whatever, in their lives. And I know people who it got caught. And in my family, catches one, doesn't catch the other. What do you think on that?
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's environmental factors like people, places, things. I think it's trauma. And I also think it is a genetic predisposition or like a biological attachment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I had tried Coke like with my brother, never was into it, never understood it, never liked stimulants.
Yeah.
Pot and opiates, I always really liked. I actually heard that women who like pot are 50% more likely to have an opiate issue later on. I forgot. It was something I read I want to say like a long time ago, like 2013. But it was just interesting for me. And too, as an adult now, I realize that I was mildly autistic. And that is why. And I didn't know as a kid. So I was always like, why don't people accept me? Why don't people want to be my friend? And I found myself too constantly seeking approval of other people because I wanted friendships, right? Because I wanted that community because I didn't have community or support at home. And I believe that part of why I was able to succeed and why the 12-step community works is because a lot of the people that come into the rooms are so broken, they don't think they'll ever be healed and they don't think they can ever be loved by another person or themselves. And when the room comes together for you, a room of strangers, well, I'll pick you up. I'll buy you a coffee. I'll help you. I'll sit down with you and help you dissect this book and go through these steps. And when you're feeling squirrely, I'll come get you or I'll meet you some. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's a lot of power in that.
There's validity there of people who walk the walk, talk the talk.
And
right?
hey, you're worth me showing up for.
Yeah,
because that's essentially the message that you receive.
I mean, because listen, who are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to somebody who's not been in your position, try to give you advice.
Right.
Hey, Ginger, you shouldn't do
You
this.
should just stop.
Why can't you stop?
I've stopped about 50 million times,
right,
buddy.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not the stopping that's the hard part. It's the not starting again.
Yeah, right. I heard, a really funny line a long time ago when it was by Richard Pryor, and they asked him on an interview, so Richard, did you ever do cocaine? He goes, yeah, I did it once for 30 years straight.
Yeah, that's how my oxyron was.
So
I did it once, it's never really stopped.
Yeah, but, I think you got to be around those type of people that, they give a shit about you. They show validity of, I've been where you are or close to where you are, and for you to get better. But, I mean, let's fast forward to you a little bit today. And, I mean,
so I was
your motivation, I mean, look, all of this is going on. This is a pretty shitty part of your life, and a lot of people go through it, some worse than others, of life, and where, we pick each other up and pick yourself up and say, hey, that's not going to be me anymore. But I still got to struggle, and I still got to battle the demons. But I still, I want more. And I hear one thing from you numerous times about wanting to kill yourself. And that is one thing, knowing you, I can't really fathom, because you're vibrant, you're upbeat, and it's kind of a hard side to see. But now you've 360'd pretty much in your life, right?
Yeah.
And you are in a really, really better spot.
For sure. And so it's interesting. So to bring it all back to boxing, right?
Yeah.
So when I started with the medical marijuana vape.
Why the boxing gym?
I just love it.
So
as
you
a
had
kid,
you had no background in boxing at all.
I had no background. I used to watch UFC and stuff, but I wasn't a real big fan. But I would watch it when it came on. I was always like, "Dude, that's so cool!" And I always admired people.
Were you kicking people's ass in the street? Is that why?
No, I was, and I'm really I kind of thrive in confrontation and chaos, but I don't really ever want to hurt anybody, right?
Yeah.
Even in the gym when we spar, I tend to shy away from it. I'd much rather hit mitts because my goal is to never hurt anybody. It's to not be hurt, right? And I've had situations that have come up in my life before getting sober where I felt like, wow, I really wish I would have known how to handle that situation, because maybe if I had had some skill and some confidence in my ability, I could have walked away from that in a different manner, right? But
I think it comes from the confidence, because if you have confidence, you know you already got the skill, so you already know what your backup plan is. But I think it's the confidence to handle yourself like that.
Yeah, maybe. But, so I found myself in this really weird place in 2019. I'd had my child. COVID was going on. I was very alone. There weren't meetings going on. I started with the medical marijuana vape around that time. And I was going to meetings when I could get to them and when they were available. And I didn't want to talk because in my recovery, I was always taught, like, you don't speak if you're not totally abstinent off drugs. If you're not sober, you don't talk. So I knew I was smoking this medical marijuana vape, even though I wasn't high all the time. I was found, again, in a situation where I found myself in a room full of people that knew me and loved me and had watched me grow, and I felt I couldn't talk to them and be honest with them because I was scared of the judgment that would come from it. And I knew that at that point, I could not put down the marijuana vape, not because I couldn't do it, but because I felt like if it was either this or go back to pills or shoot myself, because I couldn't live. Again, it was another situation where, like, I was so uncomfortable, I couldn't live the way I was living, even in sobriety, because of the chronic pain that I was having.
Yeah.
So the boxing gym gave me a community and people to talk to, and a whole plethora of knowledge that I never had access to, and people that showed up for me and would say, hey, if you're tight here and you're messing up here, this is where you should go, this is what you should work on, this is what I recommend for you. And then when I followed those instructions, I noticed I got better. I got quicker, faster, stronger, and had less pain. And the more that happened, the more I kept coming back for it. And it was also almost like the gym became my new sober
therapy.
Community. Yeah, my new 12-step community.
Yeah, the gym's my therapy. I probably, but it becomes contagious, and the network of people in the gyms and boxing and everything else and combat sports.
I've met some of the most amazing people in my life, like you, Jeff from the gym, absolutely love him. Christine Faria, dude, that like, who would have thought that now I get to go hang out with some of, like, the baddest people in BKFC or in Gamebred BKFC, because I'm able to show up for people and I'm able to actually be happy and genuine.
But that's the thing with combat sports, but where the athletes are a little more humble. They're more approachable, whereas, like, you know what?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, you got to remember one thing. Your struggle is, athletes struggle. Combat sport athletes, boxers, they struggle. They're out there trying to become something, going through adversity, families, whatnot, lack of money, injuries, you can name it all. The environment is not always the best environment around them. And like you said, you find out who your friends are when you really need to find out who your friends are. They're all there for the party.
Yeah.
But who's there for when there isn't a party?
Yeah, for the recovery.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's that. So, actually, so you came in and you've worked with us a little bit, and I've said what I said about your skill level, and you have, an ability for somebody who hasn't really trained that much, and it is there. And I think you're your own worst critic, because you're very hard on yourself of what you can do and what you can't do. But, tell us a little bit about the gravitation now as you're in this sport and you see it. Is it part of something you want to grow with a little more?
I absolutely would love to grow within the sport. I vacillate between, like, hey, I have a lot to offer this sport, even if I'm not a competitor, as far as, like, a commentator, a connector, because I'm really good at connecting people. Yeah. And, like, there's always somebody looking for a new fight. There's always a new person looking for an opportunity. And there's always somebody looking to be seen and to have, some type of engagement with a new crowd and like new trainers and like just to grow within it, right? So I feel like I could help bridge that gap. I would love to eventually take a fight. I don't know if it's realistic. I'm 37,
Well, now you got so many things out there, okay? So at that age, look, you're 37 is a number. If you're trained and you're trained properly and you feel good about it, everything being equal, you're not going to fight a 20-year-old individual.
I hope so.
You know what I'm saying? But with everything being out there right now with social media, we have influencers out there fighting at the influencer level.
Right.
Some not very good.
Right.
Some not bad. I mean, honestly, I personally think, and not because I know you, I have worked with you. I think if you committed, really, really were able to commit for a year, you would see a lot more results.
I agree.
Because, you have skill now, you're strong, you're powerful. You have a good sense of the sport for somebody who hasn't been around it that much. And that's part of the whole thing. You pick up pretty quickly as far as your training. Like, honestly, when you first came up, I didn't know what to expect with you. No, but that's nothing against you.
No, I get it. I hear that a lot.
Yeah, but that's what anybody who comes up and train. I don't, if I haven't, seeing it, I'm like, okay, there's something there. Tell us about the connection with BK.
So the connection with BKFC happened super randomly. So I am friends with the people who own the Game Bred BKFC. And for those of you who don't know the difference, the Game Bred BKFC is more MMA, bare knuckles, right? Dean Tool and the Tool brothers own that. And I was in the Pensacola area. So that's how they also do island fights over there. So that's kind of how I got introduced to them. And BKFC happened because I was going to podcast and I came out here and I interviewed Heather Hardy.
Right.
But before we had originally had one date set and she couldn't come. So somebody that was in the podcasting world, Stax, somebody I know through Ian, had said, hey, if you're looking for, he didn't realize I was looking for someone physical to come in and sit down like we're doing now. He was like, you should reach out to Christine Faria. I'm like, who is Christine Faria? So I Google, I'm like, oh my God, how do I not know who Christine Faria is?
Right.
I reach out to her in the DMs and like, she almost immediately got back to me. And when I tell you like, her and her whole team are some of the most amazing and humble people and hardworking, dedicated people that I have ever seen. That's all. That's like word is bond on that. Like, I have managed to cultivate this friendship with a lot of the people that work within BKFC by showing up.
Yeah.
And it's nice because like I go to these events, right? I'm not a fighter. I'm not an influencer. Like I'm just Ginger.
Yeah.
And people are excited to see me. They're like, bro, I was hoping you would come through. You know what I mean? And it just feels so good to be welcome in a place where, like, in my mind, I don't belong here, right? Like, I go through that a lot in my head. Like, I don't belong here. I'm not an athlete. I don't have the training. I'm not a coach. What am I doing here? But I'm still welcome. And that really is why I love the boxing community so much. And that is probably why I believe that had I not gotten into the boxing gym, I think I would have found I would not have found a solution.
No.
I would have found more problems, if that makes sense.
Well, look, the boxing world, bare knuckle, like I said, combat sports, supporters are out there. They need people to support them. And being on a BK FC event, great venue. I was blessed to work with a fighter out in Sturgis, meet David Feldman and his whole team. First class operation.
Yeah.
Really kind of blew me away. From the moment I got there to the moment I left, of the way that they put on their event and they take care of their people. And it is a small little network out there. Now they're signed with the Zone. So I think we're going to see some big things happen with BKFC. A lot of people are transitioning to it.
Conor McGregor recently invested in that.
Well, Conor was there at Sturgis.
Yeah.
I could not
Didn't
speak
have access to him. Yeah,
but he was there. And I believe he was at the last two fights. I don't know if he was in this last weekend, but there was one before that, the one in Spain he was at with Austin Trout, I believe. But I think you're going to see a lot more exciting things coming out of there. It's very exciting. Fighters, the talent, and would you do BK instead of boxing?
I actually think I would be better at BKFC than I am with boxing. I think the gloves make. I don't know how to describe it. I almost feel like it's like tinker time with the gloves versus like, dude, if we're we're prison fighting almost. Like this shit's serious.
You want to get it in pretty quick.
Yeah.
I could see. It's coming out of the traditional boxing end. It's interesting to see and watch these guys and girls, athletes. Actually, I kind
make the transition.
Yeah, I felt, on the card that we were at, they had Britton Hart and
I love her.
Yeah,
she is so sweet.
Stalling.
We talk all the time.
That was the best fight out there.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to anybody.
No,
and
no,
you know
yeah.
what? Those girls went at it for 5 rounds.
Yeah.
They and I know Britton's trainer, Marcus Luck, through association and other fighters and everything. I mean, they're just very impressive what I saw out there with that. But, do you see yourself now as a role model for others? Why?
No. Because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know my tail from my top.
Not so much in the sport, but as an individual who can say, look, I've went through situations in my life, and, you're pretty open with it.
Yeah.
You don't hide it. You're not afraid to talk about it, which some people are, some people aren't. Do you see yourself as being able to coach and help others?
Absolutely. I don't believe I'm a role model. I don't really know why. I just feel like I'm more of like a beacon of hope in that. And I'll be honest, like I hadn't really other than Intervention, and Intervention shares the story they want to share it, right? And there was a lot of things that they edited out.
Yeah.
But before Ian, I had never had an opportunity, and I never had a desire really to share my story because I was so ashamed. There's so much shame that comes with my story because like I was smart and I had opportunities and I should have known better.
But does your story change to the millions of people out there that were like you?
Yes, that is my hope. That is why I tell it.
Okay, so when you're telling your story here to me, you're emotional about it. You have feeling about it, okay? I think in today's day and age, there's so much going on, not only in the addiction end, but, you overcame that battle, okay, that you're still fighting every day. But, on a personal level, you're moving in a different direction. You sort of like reinvented yourself.
Absolutely. Yes, I had to. I had to kill my old self
you got a lot going
to become who I am.
You're a businesswoman. You're a mother, a homeowner, actress, aspiring actress.
Yeah, that's some cool stuff.
You know what I mean? So like,
and I never would have had any of those opportunities had I not taken control of my physical, mental, and emotional well-being, and that includes and is not limited to getting off of drugs, getting my weight under control, getting my diet under control, and having something that, like, I'm one of those people, I need to wake up in the morning, first thing I should do is go to the gym. That's why every time I'm out here, I'm like, 9 a.m., 8 a.m., 10 a.m., because if I don't do it then, I don't do it, and I feel so much more accomplished and so much. If the only thing I do right today is I show up at the gym and I do something for 30 minutes instead of sitting at home, it was a good day for me. And that it was kind of the same with sobriety. If I can do right when I get up these first few things that they make the day easier, and then as I get 3 months into it, I'm doing them with less thought. It's just kind of automatic, and the benefits go more into the day, if that makes sense. Like one good decision leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, versus snowballing and like just staying in bed and not doing anything about my life. Yeah.
No, I see what you're saying. Well, listen, we really, really appreciate you coming up here. I mean, it's catching up with you in a different light is just kind of uplifting. And I
brought the gloves, though. We're putting them on tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we're going to put the gloves on. We're going to get some stream of that, too. But let me ask you this. If you had to give somebody advice, if you had to go back, how about this one? I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had to go back and talk to yourself at 18, what would you say?
Stop letting other people tell you who you are. Stop letting other people tell you what your life is supposed to be like. Stop letting other people tell you that you can't, that you won't, that you shouldn't, that you don't deserve it.
Awesome.
I mean, if you put in the work, if you pursue your passions, I personally believe whatever your higher power, your universe, your God is, I think it's given us all gifts that are innate to us. And if you're able to tap into that and use that, you'll benefit yourself and your community and your family tenfold.
I'm going to give you one last thing. All right? I'm going to give you 3 dinner guests. You could have dinner with anybody. Sit down, have dinner, and talk to them. Who are they?
Man,
I'm going to put your thinking cap on. Come on, girl.
I don't know why this is so difficult right now.
You know, I get a mixed bag on this question. I get some people that rapid fire it right off, and then some people
I feel like I really want to think about it. Oh man, I really don't know. I really don't know.
Give me one.
I mean, so
Give me one.
so my grandmother died, and my grandmother was like, I didn't really get to make full amends to my grandmother. And she was like the biggest supporter. So like if I could do anybody, like my grandmother would be number one.
Awesome.
Ian never has time for me when I come out here. I sit down and talk to Ian. Who else? Let me get one more. You and I have had lunch a couple times. I would probably want to pick I don't know. I think Mike Tyson would be super interesting just because his story is so diverse and he has so many of the same elements that I had, and like was able to go from like bankruptcy and bouncing back.
Oh, 100%.
To Bunny. Oh, wait, one more. So Bunny, Jelly Rolls Bunny. Yeah. Oh my God, I love her so much. And I feel like I could just talk to her for hours about similar things that we experience in life that maybe we didn't touch on this podcast.
Yeah, I got you. Well, listen, once again, thank you. And, you're welcome back here at any time. Obviously, we can talk on. And we appreciate all your supporters out there that are following us and watching our podcast out there. So this is Coach Dave McDonough. Train hard, train smart, and we'll see you at the next round.
I'm Coach Dave. Welcome back to Coach's Corner.
Come on.